What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the DFS OGs podcast here on RotoGrinders, talking everything Week 5, breaking down each and every game, including Thursday, Sunday night, Monday night, taking user questions. We'll do that in Part 2. But here in Part 1 will be a lot of analysis, a lot of fun, try to talk some off-topic stuff, but discuss things that went right, what went wrong last week, and then focus on the plays for this week. So let me bring in my fellow OGs here. You know him, you love him. Head Chopper, Notorious Chop. Let's start with you. How was Week 4, brother?
Week 4 was okay. It was actually pretty much a success in the NFL, so I can't complain about that. I'd take that week all 17 weeks of the year if I could.
That's what we like to hear. Noto, how about you? How was Week 4, brother?
Yeah, pretty decent week overall, but I went back to the well with Lamar Miller. He really hurt me from some big cashes. But other than that, yeah, it's kind of crazy. We're seeing a completely new NFL this season. We're breaking records in terms of points scored, passing yards, passing touchdowns, and we got to adjust when it comes to DFS.
All right, it's becoming like college football, Chop. So this is right up your alley here with all these air raids and all these quarterbacks. But looking like another fun week. Don't forget, bye weeks are starting this week. So we got less games, less things to choose from, but we got some crucial decisions to make. So let's start Thursday night. You look over on DraftKings, $1.25 million showdown tournament, $250,000 to first, just a $10 buy-in. And we have Colts and Patriots. Now, Chop, I know you do a video with Tony. You focus on these slates. So let's get started with you. How do we differentiate here? The Patriots, obviously, a million ways you can go. The Colts put up some points, didn't get it done at home. Do we see a shootout here? Are we loading up on offensive players, or are you going a different route?
I definitely don't see necessarily a shootout here. Maybe on New England's end, and that's about it. Looks like T.Y. is going to miss the game, so even less offense for Indianapolis, and I don't think I'm going to turn to one of those other guys to sheerly fill in his numbers. I don't think it's going to be that kind of a situation. I think the loss of T.Y. makes this thing much more prone to a blowout. So I think the way you attack this one is going to be load up on 5 of those 6 spots with New England players, and hopefully you can hit on the right Indianapolis guy.
And who are some of your favorite plays there? We got Edelman returning to the lineup. We saw Sony Michel have a big game. James White have a big game. Gronk questionable, so we'll see on that. But maybe somebody that's not one of those guys. Anybody stand out as a cheaper option you're willing to take a chance on? Maybe a Josh Gordon.
I don't want to say they stand out. It's the usual suspects, but I would say that if you want to be a little bit different and you want to try to win this thing, you take a chance on a guy like Chris Hogan. Now that he's not going to be the number one guy, if this were a regular Week 5 game where Edelman had been playing this whole time, and Gronk was a little bit dinged up, and the offense was running smooth, Chris Hogan would be on everybody's radar. You know, it's not like he's just all of a sudden up and disappear. I just think the numbers he's put up this year have been so bad that everybody wants to shy away from him. He's still the same guy. He's still the number 2 wide receiver in the offense this week, behind Edelman. And I don't think Josh Gordon is ready to make an impact just yet. Gronk is banged up, like I said. I think you take a shot on a guy like Hogan, but the usual suspects. Hopefully you get the right running back on your team and the right set of receivers. And in this case, I think Hogan could be on the radar.
Things I never thought I'd say to start this season off. Chris Hogan is cheaper in this slate than Jacoby Brissett, Brian Hoyer, Ryan Grant, and Chester Rogers is $1,200 more than Chris Hogan. So I like that call, Chop. Just $4,800 on DraftKings. So I think a lot of people, like you said, are going to shy away from that. But it's a guy that's good in the red zone. And in these showdown slates, you need touchdowns. So great call there. Noto, let's get over to you. Same questions. Obviously, a lot of New England. Any sneaky New England plays? And then are you more optimistic on the Colts than Chop seems to be?
I'd say I'm more optimistic than Chop, but not that optimistic in general. They're going to have to air it out quite a bit to try to keep up with this Patriots offense. I think it's a good game script for Naheem Hines. Caught 9 of his 11 targets last week. And if no T.Y. Hilton, Luck's got to throw it to somebody. So I like Hines a little bit. Grant Rogers, they're fine in this showdown slate. If you're playing the Thursday through Monday, probably not looking at anyone from Indy. On New England's side, we can actually rely on these Patriots running backs for the first time in a couple of years, basically a 50-50 split when it comes to snaps last week between Sonny Michel and James White. Michel had all the carries pretty much, but didn't see any targets, only ran 3 pass routes. So on a full PPR site like DraftKings, probably leaning more towards James White. And with Edelman back, I think you just go right to him. Hopefully people will be scared to play him. The Colts are going to be missing their good slot corner, so that's a really nice boost for Edelman. And then if Gronk stays questionable throughout the week, I think that little Q is going to end up lowering his ownership a little bit. I don't mind targeting him in all formats. And the Colts linebackers have just really struggled in coverage. So I like Edelman, Gronk, and Brady stacks, and then maybe mix in some James White as well.
So neither of you brought up Nyheim Hines, so I want to bring him up here because I know a lot of people are going to ask. People are going to ask. This is why I'm bringing it up. I'm not.
You don't listen.
What?
Come
I
on,
must
man.
not have been listening.
Come on, man.
Oh, you were on Nyheim Hines. So, Chop, you weren't. So, any thoughts on Hines?
I'll pass on this one, man. Nice game, that last game out, but I don't think I don't expect him to do that too much this year. I'm gonna pass on. The one thing I preach in these showdown slates, you find your angle and you stick to it, and you don't get off of it. And in this case, I'm really just not on Indy, man. I may stick in one pass catcher to fill in my one Indy spot that I have to have. I'm just not on these other guys, so I'm gonna pass.
Derek, my apologies, brother. I'm easily distracted. A lot of things looking at stats and my bad. So.
Pornhub.
Pour one out for my listening skills, clearly. So let's move on to the Sunday main slate. Again, a shorter slate because of bye weeks, but still looks like a fun slate. A lot of big totals in this one. This one, maybe not so much, Derek. Tennessee and Buffalo. We saw the Bills 2 weeks ago shock the world in Minnesota. Last week, go to Lambeau and get shut out. Tennessee, though, Mariota comes back. We had concerns. Pretty sure we all avoided him last week. Puts a big number on the board along with Corey Davis, the emergence of Taywan Taylor, and Deion Lewis not bad in the passing game. So I think there's a lot of angles here for the Titans, including the defense. Are you as high on them as I am this week?
Not as high on the offense, but I do like the defense quite a bit. Josh Allen has taken a sack on 15% of his dropbacks, which is by far the highest of any quarterback in the NFL this season. So I like that call. Don't mind looking at Corey Davis, 32% market share, averaging 10 targets per game so far this season. I'll probably play him over Taylor, at least in this spot. Yeah, overall, just not a game I want a ton of exposure to. Definitely going to be staying away from everyone on the Bills.
Things I didn't think I'd say in 2018, Chop. The Titans defense is the highest priced defense on the full slate here on DraftKings. So are they worth the price tag there? And then your thoughts on the offense and any interest in the Buffalo side?
Buffalo, no interest. I don't think outside of LaShawn McCoy, I don't think I'll probably roster a Buffalo guy all year long. They're just not good. So McCoy's the only one I would keep in my back pocket, and this might not be the game to use him. So I just don't have much interest in Buffalo this year at all. But Tennessee, sure, I don't mind going back to the Corey. I was not on Mariota, but I was on Corey Davis. He helped me with one lineup that was really, really nice last week. So I'll go back to Corey Davis. No problems there. And, I don't know if I want to pull the trigger on Mariota in this game. And the running backs are a bit of a conundrum to figure out. So I guess I'll stick to Corey Davis and maybe a little bit of Taywan Taylor.
Yeah, tough to get too excited. I mean, a total under 40, that's generally not a game we're going to target. So I think more bits and pieces of this one. But, as far as a stack of Tennessee or anything like that, it may be difficult. So any interest in Derrick Henry, you guys? Is he ever going to get it going here? It came into the season with a lot of hype and just has not lived up to it. Any interest there? Maybe a pairing of Henry and the Titans defense.
I would say for me, I would have more interest in Derrick Henry this week than Deion Lewis. So yeah, I would say, there's some interest there. Just looking at the game, I don't think Buffalo's very good. I think they got really lucky there against Minnesota. Everything happened perfectly for them. I think if this game gets to be a little bit like a double-digit blowout in the third quarter, we could see Derrick Henry manhandle this defensive line and get his 100 yards and a touchdown.
I mean, the 2 games before the last one, which obviously didn't go in his favor, but 18 carries in each of those games. So if he gets anything near that at 4,400 and you get a lower scoring game, I think he could provide value, very low ownership. Jarek, your thoughts, Derrick Henry, yay or nay?
He wasn't on my radar, but you do make a compelling argument. You can pair him up with the Titans defense, nice correlation play in tournaments. So I don't hate it. The Bills, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, so I don't hate it.
All right, let's get away from that game. Let's get to a fun one here. Atlanta and Pittsburgh. Who's not in play here, Derek?
Well, Julio Jones on pace for 125 catches, 2,000 yards, and 0 touchdowns. I don't know what this guy has to do to find the end zone. I'm going to keep playing him. Had that big game, 9 for $173, especially on a site like DraftKings. I mean, touchdowns don't hurt you as much when you're getting that 100-yard bonus and you're just getting 9, 10 catches a game. So I'll keep playing Julio. I know Calvin Ridley has been scoring all the touchdowns, but he's only playing 59% of the snaps, 5.3 targets per game. I'd like to see more volume for my wide receiver. So give me Julio in this spot. Want to stay away from the backfield, especially if Devontae Freeman's going to be back. And then Matt Ryan on the road, I'm just not too sure about him. I know the Pittsburgh defense has just been terrible. I actually just read an article, I can't remember who wrote it, but saying that Ryan Shazier has been a bigger impact on the Steelers than Le'Veon Bell being out, and I have to agree. So, I don't mind Ryan, but probably just Julio for me on the Atlanta side. And then Big Ben, love him in this spot, going to be pairing him up with all of his pass catchers. Atlanta's not good at covering the middle of the field. We know they give up a lot of receptions to running backs, and they give up a lot of receptions to slot corners and tight ends. So you can look at Juju, you can look at McDonald. Obviously, Antonio Brown's going to be in play. I think you just stack up the Steelers side and then bring it back with Julio.
What about James Conner? I think this is a great bounce-back spot. I think a lot of people, with good reason, are going to focus on the guys you mentioned, Derek. The passing game looks to be in a great spot here. But Atlanta, bottom 5 against the running back. We know they give up a ton of receptions to running backs, and we know Pittsburgh is going to use James Conner in that role. So any interest there? Is it just all-out Pittsburgh or just more focused on the passing game for you?
Yeah, I'll definitely have some Connor. I like pairing him up with Big Ben and maybe another receiver as well. So, yeah, pretty much all things Pittsburgh in this one for me.
All right, Chop, same question to you. Who's not in play here? Because I think there's a lot of ways you can go, a lot of options. It's obviously a game stack. So how are you attacking this one?
Who's not in play? I'll start off with Atlanta. Who's not in play? For me, Calvin Ridley's not in play. He won't be in my player pool. I tried to fade him last week, and for the most part I did, and then he gets lucky and donks off another couple touchdowns for the donks, man. So, I mean, but it's gonna eventually die down there. Like, price is elevated now. Ownership is incredibly elevated. I'm hoping 30% of the field is on him again this week, because I don't think that's a player I want to go to. So I'll pass on him. He's the one guy. Julio is the guy on that offense I really want. Yeah. Tevin Coleman looks okay. And price tag wise, I'm going to avoid Matt Ryan this week. But Julio, I'm with Derek on that one. Julio is my guy. On the flip side is the offense that I want more than any other offense this week. That Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's going to be popular, but I think we can find the plays in there that make it happen. James Conner's interesting. We've seen he hasn't run. I mean, since that first week against Cleveland, his running skills have really diminished here. Like, he's not getting the runs that we thought, but he's still catching those little check downs. So he's still in play. And of course, this is the defense you want that against. So I think but then again, we've been watching these last couple of weeks, and it's Ryan Switzer who's been lining up in the backfield, catching these catches coming out. So it's really weird. Maybe it's a Ryan Switzer week this week, and maybe James Conner is doing kind of like what I thought he was going to do to start the year, which is not a super efficient player compared to Le'Veon Bell, and that Cleveland game was a fluke. So I don't know how I'm going to play that one yet, but it's interesting. But Antonio Brown, I think I got to fire him up on all cylinders this week. Squeaky wheel, everything. Hadn't had great weeks. This team is struggling. They're at home. This is not as nearly as good of a defense as they faced last week against Baltimore. I think Big Ben gets it done for about 350 and 4 touchdowns, and a lot of it goes to Antonio.
Yeah, Switzer's interesting. I mean, minimum price. We saw 7 targets last week, so he's a guy that you could throw into that stack to save some money. A couple of interesting pricing notes here. Mohamed Sanu, who I had a lot of last week, Chop. I was in the same boat. Fade Ridley, everything was going great, and then he finds the end zone twice. But Sanu played well in that game, is playing more snaps, is running more routes, and he's $1,800 cheaper on DraftKings. So I think he's very much in play at 4K. And then Vance McDonald, I think he's in play on both sites. I think you guys both brought him up. but just 4,600 on FanDuel. So he missed the pricing bump there. DraftKings has him up at 3,700. I don't think that's out of play, but obviously probably the game of the week offensively, the game everybody's going to stack, but the Switzers, the Sanus, guys like that, I don't think a lot of people will go to. So a way to differentiate your lineups. All right, Chop, let's go from the high-scoring affair here to Denver and the Jets. I mean, Denver played tough at home. Mahomes was absolutely unbelievable. We'll get to him in the next game, but got it done, went into Denver, so Denver takes a tough home loss. The Jets, I don't have much great to say about them. Went to Jacksonville and got thumped. So which team responds here? Denver on the road or the Jets at home?
Let's start off with Denver on the road. I guess we could go back to Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, for the fact that they played Kansas City on Monday night, and Kansas City has a terrible defense, it was shocking how bad this entire passing game was in that Kansas City game. Like, nobody made any type of move at value. So I'll go back to Emmanuel Sanders, but I'm starting to get a little bit impatient with what they're doing through the passing game in Denver, man. And then the backfield would be nice if one of these guys wasn't there, but Freeman and Lindsey completely split up everything. So it's tough to get super excited about that one also. So for Denver, I guess Emmanuel Sanders, but it's just not super exciting on that side of the ball. And on the other side, the New York Jets, I guess this would be the week that I would look for Robbie Anderson to break out as opposed to Nunwa. So I'm more on the Robbie Anderson train this week more than anybody else for the Jets.
Yeah, this one, I don't have a lot in this game. I mean, the Jets coming into the week were the number one DVOA team, or number two overall, been very good against receivers. So it's tough to get excited about this passing game, like you said. And we almost have to be on Chad Kelly alert here. If you're in a dynasty league, it's a guy I would stash. I know they paid Keenum a lot of money, but he did not look good, especially last night. And I think that change could be coming sooner than later. So just a note for you dynasty players and something to keep an eye on moving forward. But Derek, back to DFS here. Don't want to get too far off the beaten path. Jets and Broncos looks ugly. Any plays here stand out for you?
You mentioned Keenum's struggles. Over the last 3 weeks, he's failed to top 245 passing yards, and he's not thrown a touchdown while he's thrown 3 picks. And he's faced the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Raiders. So definitely don't want to buy this Broncos offense right now. Chop mentioned the time split in the backfield. That just hurts both Freeman and Lindsey's workload, so can't go there. Not really interested in anyone from Denver. And then on the Jets side, the one guy that I've been using is Quincy Enunwa. He's going to be lined up against Chris Harris, who might be the best slot corner in the NFL. So, yeah, not a lot to like here. If you want to take a shot on Robbie Anderson, I do like that call in large field tournaments. Only 3,800 on DraftKings.
Yeah, let's move on from that one. That's an ugly game, low total. I don't think there's much there. Now, Jacksonville, Kansas City. Derek. This one should be interesting. We have the unstoppable offense in Kansas City against still one of the league's best defenses in Jacksonville. What happens here? Does Kansas City continue to roll here? Do they get slowed down by Jacksonville? This one very intriguing, but what do we do with it here in DFS?
Yeah, so I think this one is a shootout, with Jags defense, one of the best in the NFL. But Mahomes went into Denver and broke the Broncos streak of 38 straight games without allowing 300 passing yards. He's just matchup proof at this point. And this total set at over 50 points. So Vegas obviously likes the scoring in this one. So, yeah, I'm going to be loading up. I think you can stack it in a number of ways. Doesn't sound like Fournette's going to play. So as long as he's out, I think you can load up TJ Yeldon. He's a good pass-catching running back. Handles 74% of the running back touches without Fournette so far this season. Blake Bortles just killed me, 2 weeks ago against the Titans, but bounced back in a big way against the Jets. I think he's in play on the road. You can pair him up with any of his pass catchers, really. Dede, Cole, Moncrief have all had big games so far this season. So lots to like on Jacksonville's side. And then on KC, I certainly don't mind, going to Mahomes. 6,200 for the best, fantasy quarterback so far this season isn't too bad. And if Watkins is unable to play, I think gives a little bump to Kelsey, maybe a little bump to Hunt as well. We saw him get involved in the passing game against the Broncos, had his big breakout game. Tyreek Hill's always a threat to break a big play. Even if they try to shadow him with Jalen Ramsey, I don't think it's going to work because he's so fast. So I like this game quite a bit. I'm going to have quite a few stacks, and it's right there with the Steelers game as my favorite of the week.
This is a question for both of you guys, but Derek, you take it first. Where do you expect Mahomes' ownership to come in? I know everybody wants to play him each and every week. Do you think people will hesitate because it's Jacksonville? And I know normally quarterbacks, we don't worry about ownership. Just curious your thoughts of where he checks in.
Yeah, quarterbacks never get too chalky, especially in tournaments, because everyone likes to pair them up with their pass catchers and everyone likes to do different game stacks. So I doubt he's going to get more than 15%. We have Rivers, Big Ben, Cam, all in great spots. I think Bortles will be a pretty popular play as well. So I doubt it'll be more than 15%.
Yeah, I tend to agree, right in that 12 to 15%. I'm just interested to see what the public thinks and if they fade them because they're playing Jacksonville. I think that's a mistake. I'm with you. I see more of a shootout here. All right, Chop, over to you. A lot to go for here. A lot of guys in play. Who are some guys that are standing out to you?
Yeah, I don't think I'd hesitate to play some of the Kansas City guys, the big skill. Now it'll hurt. It's going to hurt the whole offense if Watkins can't play because they really don't have a substitute for him. But like Derek said, I'll always take a great wide receiver with a special skill set like Tyreek over one-on-one coverage, just like Julio last week. Anytime a great wide receiver gets one-on-one coverage, I'll take that guy like Tyreek one-on-one with Jalen Ramsey. He's got the kind of skill set that can blow that out the water and be a tournament-winning wide receiver. So I'd play him. I'd play Mahomes because I just don't see Jacksonville. Yeah, maybe they can limit some of the damage, but they're not going to stop Mahomes. No, there's no way. So, and I expect the Jacksonville offense to be a lot better than the Denver offense just was on Monday Night Football. So it's going to, pick up the pace on Mahomes. And they know that they can't just run Kareem Hunt into the ground against Jacksonville. They got to air it out. So I definitely like this passing game quite a bit. On the flip side, man, I'm with Derek here. I like a lot of this Jacksonville stuff. If Fournette sits out, which he is, yeah, I like all these guys. I like Bortles. I like his pass catchers. I even like TJ Yeldon a little bit. They're a lot more fluid of an offense without Fournette in there. So I think I could go Bortles, Yeldon, and I guess if you twist my arm, I would say Keelan Cole. But Bortles has shown an ability to get it to each one of these guys: Cole, Moncrief, Westbrook, and so any one of them are in playing tournaments.
Yeah, that was the next question: is pick a receiver. We've seen Westbrook have 2 big weeks. We've seen Cole have a big week. We've seen Moncrief have a big week. So, Chop, you say Cole. I kind of agree with that because he's the one with the box score that didn't show anything last week. So I think he'll be the lowest owned. Derek, you have to pick one. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, I'll go with Keelan Cole just because he's been the guy I've played so far, I guess.
All right, and great points on Yeldon. I think he's in a good spot here. And the pricing, I like to see that he's priced up. 56 on DraftKings, 65 on FanDuel. So not a free square. And Blake Bortles, we know when Fournette's out, for the most part, outside of 2 weeks ago, plays well. I think he's one of my favorite value quarterbacks on the week. All right, next game, Green Bay and Detroit. Chop, we've seen Green Bay be up and down, not look good on the road in Washington. Now they have to go into Detroit. And we've seen Detroit the same. It looked horrible against the Jets, looked great against the Patriots, looked okay against Dallas. How does this one break down indoors in Detroit?
Oh yeah, I'm ready for this one. I think this one is going to be. I think people are with the other games that we've already talked about. People are going to be sleeping on this one, but this one can be as high scoring as any game this weekend. I'm really anxious for this one. So Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers doesn't look as mobile with the big knee brace, but he's fine. He's still dropping dimes. So Aaron Rodgers, I guess I would say I probably won't take a running back here, but Aaron Jones would be my preference if I were. I think Devontae Adams is going to have a good game. I'm looking at the Cobb news and the Allison news now. We don't know if Allison, but if one of those guys or both of those guys should sit, we're going to have a lot of value at receiver for Green Bay. So just got to keep your eye on that. I can't give you a definitive wide receiver outside of Adams because we don't know the status of either one of those other guys. So, but I think Aaron Rodgers is going to light it up. On the flip side, this is going to be a good Matthew Stafford game in fantasy, maybe not in real life, but in fantasy, I think he does well because I think Green Bay scores points, takes Kerryon Johnson out of the game. So that means Stafford can use all these weapons, Galladay, Tate, and Jones, and rack up his 350, 400 yards trying to play catch up to Aaron Rodgers. I like this game a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you. And one guy I want to focus on here is Marvin Jones has played extremely well against the Green Bay Packers. Last 4 games, 5 for 81 and a touchdown, 11 for 107 and 2 touchdowns. 9 for 76, and then the big 8 for 205 and 2 touchdowns. He's down to 4,700 on DraftKings. He's the cheapest of the 3 receivers on FanDuel, and one of my favorite plays overall on the week. But I agree with you, Chop. This game, I think, people are gonna sleep on it, and I think that's a mistake. I think there's weapons on both sides. Watch those injuries with Allison and Cobb, like you said. So, Derek, over to you. Agree? You excited about this one, or maybe not so much?
Yeah, definitely excited about this game. I have 2 points that I wanted to bring up, not necessarily related to this, but the pricing when it comes to quarterbacks on DraftKings has narrowed considerably this year. In the past, we wanted to pay down a quarterback, but now basically all quarterbacks are priced between 4,900 and 6,900. So in this pass-happy league with so many points being scored, it makes sense to kind of pay up for some of these quarterbacks. And then the other note is, last year, if we had an over-under that was 50 points, we would just be hammering that game. And there's 7 of them this week alone. So it's just crazy, how many points are being scored right now. Just keep that in mind when building your lineups. You always want guys with high ceilings. But anyway, Rodgers at 6,300. Do think he's in play. Definitely keep an eye on Cobb and Allison. If they are both out, I would love Devontae Adams and Jimmy Graham here. Maybe even Ty Montgomery, 3,800. Aaron Jones is interesting. The Lions have been terrible against the run, but I have a hard time targeting those time split guys in a 12-game slate. And then on the Detroit side, I love the Marvin Jones call. Only 4,700 on DraftKings. He does have that great track record against the Packers. And he has more air yards this season than both Kenny Golladay and Golden Tate, averaging 2 red zone targets per game as well. So love that call. And obviously, you can play Stafford. I will be avoiding the running backs for Detroit. Kerryon Johnson's been awesome, but last week's snap count, 21 for Johnson, Blunt 14, and Riddick 25. So until he gets more work, I don't think you can play him.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, he's been great. And Matt Patricia came out today and said he's getting enough work, which I don't see how you watch the game and agree with that and say, yeah, LeGarrette Blount's been great. Theo Riddick's been great. Kerryon doesn't deserve more work, but whatever. That's Matt Patricia. So, yeah, definitely a game to target here, Detroit and Green Bay. All right, moving on. We have 3 games left here in part 1 of the DFS OGs podcast for Week 5. Appreciate you guys tuning in once again. All right, Derek, let's go to you here. Baltimore and Cleveland. Cleveland let one slip away. They had that game won. Some people will blame the refs. I think that was a bad call on Carlos Hyde. Probably should have won that game, but didn't. Baltimore, on the other hand, they're handling their business. They went into Pittsburgh, and they absolutely dominated that game. Do they go into Cleveland and do the same?
Yeah, I feel so bad for the Browns. They could easily be, 3-1, 4-0 at this point. Hugh Jackson's just terrible. While that was a bad call, 4th and inches, you got to go for it there. He came out today and said that he didn't want to test his luck after he had luck go his way earlier in the game or something like that. I mean, he's just –
that guy's an idiot. Let's just be honest.
I don't get it at all. Now they're playing a really tough Ravens defense that's going to get Jimmy Smith back, one of the better corners. So, yeah, I have a hard time trusting anyone from Cleveland right now. Maybe look at Jarvis Landry. He should be able to avoid those corners, running most of his routes in the slot. But that's about it for me on Cleveland. And then Baltimore, they just continue to put up big points. Went into Pittsburgh last week and put up another big outing. I think over their last 9 weeks, they're averaging something close to 30 points per game. We know Cleveland likes to play those deep safeties. So maybe this sets up well for Crabtree and Snead. Don't really want to play him here. I think everyone's going to look to John Brown, but with Cleveland not really giving up a lot of big plays, maybe look to those underneath guys as really low-owned tournament plays.
Yeah, I like the Snead call, 3,900, 26 targets on the season. So he's definitely getting the looks. And you mentioned those safeties. It's something to keep in mind with Cleveland as those underneath guys can do some damage. You wish you could go with a tight end there, Chop, but they utilize about 7 of them. But Baltimore's look very creative offensively. Who are some of your targets here against the Browns?
This is not a game I'll be targeting very much here on Sunday. I'm not a big fan of this game in general. I don't. Baltimore just, outside of John Brown, everything is just so split of their tight ends, like you said. There's so many of them. The running backs, you got to take a guessing game as to which one it's going to be this week. So I don't think I want to be on this train too much. And then for Cleveland, maybe I could take a shot at Jarvis Landry because he's the best receiver on this team. But I certainly don't want to pound Carlos Hyde into this Baltimore defense. And as much as I want to make him happen this year, at this point, David Njoku, just not getting it done. I mean, I had him last week on several teams, and just watching the game, it's like pulling teeth just watching him. Like, please just throw the ball to this guy, and they just don't do it. They just don't unleash him, and until they do, I can't play him. So Jarvis Landry is about the only thing in this game that really, makes. I mean, for a home run in a GPP, maybe Antonio Callaway, but that's about it.
Yeah, I was going to say Callaway still got double-digit targets in that last, or 9 targets, so 20 over the last 2 weeks is encouraging, and just not bringing in the reception, some drops and things like that. And Njoku still got 7 targets, so not going to write him off. I agree, Chop. I had him in cash on one of the sites, I forget, and just do not throw this guy the ball enough. The dude's a freak. So we'll see if that changes here, but I'm a little bit more optimistic than you on this one. I think there's bits and pieces. Flacco has played well. I think he could be in play here, but overall, I kind of fall in the middle of you two guys, I think, on this game. Let's go to the next one. Giants in Carolina. Chop, Carolina coming off the bye. Cam Newton's been about as good as anybody at the quarterback position, not named Patrick Mahomes. Is he one of your primary targets this week against the Giants?
Yeah, I think so. I think that this is a good game for Carolina coming off that bye week, and then getting a Giants team that doesn't look good, traveling, just got beat at home. So, yeah, Carolina, all of them look good. Cam Newton will be one of the better quarterbacks this week. McCaffrey, got a little bit of rest there. It's always good for a running back to get that bye week. And then I think this may be a week Devin Funchess steps up and has a good game. Again, we'd love to play tight ends against the Giants and Cleveland, but in this case, I don't think you can play one of these Carolina tight ends. So maybe Funchess kind of takes the place of a tight end here. He's big enough. So I like the Carolina playmakers for sure. And on the flip side, I don't know, man. Maybe Saquon. Maybe Odell. I could go Saquon or Odell in this game. But I tell you what, Eli Manning looks terrible. He's not a good quarterback. Huge mistake. I was just thinking about this today. This is not my rant, but I was just thinking about this today. Eli Manning was a guy that they benched last year because he sucked so bad. And they didn't even have a backup plan. They were throwing some scrub in there to take his place. But he was so bad last year they benched him. So what made them think that he was going to magically come back this year and be able to guide this offense with all these nice weapons? He's terrible, man. He's slowing everybody down. He's bringing everybody down with him. Like, the Giants made a terrible decision not to find a better quarterback in the offseason. So I love their weapons, but their quarterback brings them down. And if he can hit Odell in this game, Odell will have a big game. But Eli's shown no ability to really get the ball downfield at all. So, I mean, I'll play Odell in tournaments, and Saquon is perfectly fine in tournaments or cash. But outside of that, I don't know, man. I have a problem with Eli.
Oh, they drafted their quarterback of the future in the 3rd round last year, Chop Davis Webb, and then they cut him after one season. So clearly one of those teams that does not know what they're doing.
All right. Well, you know what? Yeah, I'll give you my rant. Let me give you a rant right now.
All right,
just
a
quick one. Just a quick one, and it's something that's been on my mind for a while now. Is that I used to go around and just chalk these players up. This player sucks, man. This player sucks. And I realized, what would really help these teams in drafting good players is hiring good coaches, because a lot of these players are good players, but you give any player who's great, they could be a great player. You stick them with bad coaches, or as a receiver or a bad quarterback or something like that. And they're not going to prosper. How many guys have we seen go from bad coaches to good coaches, and all of a sudden they look like adequate, good NFL players? Yeah, the Giants don't have a good coach. Cleveland, you just talked about Hugh Jackson. That's not a good coach. A lot of these, you look at Jared Goff and Todd Gurley, they go from bad coach to good coach. They look like world beaters. If you want to draft better players, you hire better coaches, because better coaches make average players look a lot better.
Agreed. I mean, Robert Woods, another one there for the Rams. That Buffalo was left for dead. We didn't want to roster Robert Woods, and now one of the better receivers in the league. So I totally agree with you there, and hopefully – we've talked about this before, these old ass owners that are stuck in their ways and don't want to hire these young guys. The NFL is changing. Derek brought it up in the opening, and if you're not seeing that as an owner, you're going to be left in the dust. So, Chop, I'm glad you brought that up. We love the rants here. Derek, anything to add on that while we're here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll use my 3rd and wrong on Eli. Not that I thought he was any good, but I thought he'd be better against the Saints. I mean, he's got Shepard, Odell, and Barkley. versus the Saints at home when he puts up 15 fantasy points. I don't get it. He's bringing down this whole team.
Yeah, my third and wrong is here as well. I really expected Odell Beckham to put up bigger numbers. Did okay at the end of the day. I liked Shepard as well. Had a lot of him, but I thought this was a big spot for Odell and just didn't give us that big blow-up game. So definitely my third and wrong for last week. All right, Derek, your thoughts here. Carolina coming off the bye. I agree with Chop. I think Newton, McCaffrey, phenomenal plays this week. What about the Giants? Any interest on that side?
I know this isn't a betting show, but I definitely like the Panthers in this one. Coming off the bye, the Giants coming off of that bad loss against the Saints at home. So, I like this, -7 right now. As far as the Giants offense, I think you look at Barkley. He's scored at least 20 fantasy points in every single game so far this season. He's going to get a lot of dump-offs from Eli. Don't really want to play Shepard. His price has come up to $5,600 on DraftKings. A little more playable on FanDuel at $6,200. Then Odell Beckham just not getting any deep targets, averaging 9% of his targets over 20 yards this year. Previous 2 seasons combined, it was 18%. So just not getting those deep targets. Not really sure I want to play him in this spot against a pretty good secondary. And then Carolina, definitely got to like Cam Newton. I think you can pair him up with Christian McCaffrey. He's averaging 23 fantasy points per game on full PPR scoring, and he's yet to score a touchdown. He's had 3 red zone opportunities per game, so the touchdowns are going to come. We know he gets a ton of targets, and this offensive line leads the NFL in adjusted line yards at 5.39. So a lot to like for the Panthers, but nothing to like really on the Giants side.
Yeah, and he's cheaper than some of those workhorse backs. He's $1,400 cheaper than Todd Gurley, $600 cheaper than Melvin Gordon, and gets a similar workload. And like you mentioned, without the touchdowns, I think those come this week. So I love McCaffrey against the Giants here in week 5. All right, last game for us here in part 1, Miami and Cincinnati. 2 teams kind of go in the opposite direction, Derek. We saw Miami start out 3-0, then go to New England and get thumped. Can they respond? And Cincinnati, on the other hand, has looked outstanding. And they go into Atlanta and get the win. They lose Tyler Eifert, though, on the way in Atlanta. So that's going to be a big blow to that offense. But they look good. They're on a roll. Do they continue that roll here against the Dolphins?
Is it just me, or does this line look a little fishy?
Yeah, that's one of the first things I saw too. Like, how is that only 6.5? Like, I would have thought probably over 8. But I thought the same thing against New England. It looked a little low, and look what happened there. So I think we're in a similar scenario here.
Yeah, definitely don't want any part of the Dolphins. Frank Gore over the last 3 games has 3 more touches than Drake, which is not ideal. I mean, they were playing him last week when they were down a bunch of points. That's like the worst game script possible for Gore, but he was still getting the snaps. And then there's no reliable wideout in this offense. So I don't want anything to do with the Dolphins. On the Bengals side, just keep an eye on Joe Mixon, obviously. If he's out again, then we just fire up Gio. He's been awesome. He's a good pass-catching back. He's getting all the goal line work if Mixon's out. So like him, Tyler Boyd's been really good over the last 3 weeks. He's scored 21, 29, and 24 fantasy points. It's safe to say that he wasn't just a flash in the pan in week 2. And his price is still $5,700. I still think that's pretty good. Don't mind looking at A.J. Green. And if this game stays close like Vegas expects it to, then I do think the pass catchers are going to be in play for the Bengals.
Yeah, I love Tyler Boyd in the spot. Xavier Howard's been very good in DVOA against number 1 receivers. Miami number 1. So not saying A.J. Green is out of play, but 21 against the number 2 wide receiver. And Boyd's been getting a ton of targets, and I don't think that's going to stop, especially after the loss of Eifert. Also want to throw in C.J. Uzuma here. He's the tight end you want. I know a lot of people are going to think it's Tyler Kroft, but Azuma's been playing ahead of him. But both those guys, 2,900, are intriguing here against the Dolphins. All right, Chop, wrap us up here for the analysis here in part 1, Dolphins and Bengals.
Yeah, I'm with Derek on Miami, man. There's just it's too much. It's just too weird that Drake doesn't get a lot more touches than anybody else in this offense, but they don't want to do that. So, yeah, I'm out on Miami. And then Cincinnati, I would you should take a look at what quarterbacks have done against Miami this year. I mean, I know Miami was undefeated before last week, but that first week, Mariota got hurt, and so I throw that game out the window almost. Darnold came back in week 2 with 300-plus yards. Derek Carr with 300-plus yards. And then Tom Brady last week didn't quite get to 300, but he did throw 3 touchdowns. And, I mean, they were up 38-0 in that game or whatever. He didn't have to pass for 300. So I think quarterbacks, you can attack Miami with some quarterbacks. Andy Dalton's looked as good as anybody this year. The red rifle, the red rocket, you know, those redheaded guys, man, you gotta watch them. But they're like my buddy used to say, red on the head like a dick on a dog. You gotta play this guy, man. You gotta play him at this point. He's got some pass catchers. Even if Joe Mixon is in, those guys are better pass catchers than running backs anyway. So he's got a plethora of weapons. I like Andy Dalton to have one, and he's been better this year anyway. But even when he wasn't good with good coaching, he always was prone to one of those big weeks where he runs one in and throws for 3 or 4 and wins a tournament. I think this is the week where he puts up like 4 or 5 total touchdowns and competes for a tournament for you.
Yeah, I love Andy Dalton again. Had him in cash on DraftKings last week. I mean, multiple touchdowns every single week and another good matchup here at home. So it's hard to argue with the production, and the offense is rolling. So really high on this Cincinnati team. I'll have a lot of exposure, but especially Dalton and Tyler Boyd. All right, that'll wrap us up for part 1 of the OGs podcast. Make sure you come on back. Tomorrow we will release part 2, where we talk all the afternoon games, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and we answer, of course, some user questions. Guys, any final thoughts here in part 1? Derek?
Chop, I got to write this down. Red on the head like a dick on a dog?
Exactly how he said it.
Only in Texas would you get a phrase like that. I love it.
He had a sister. He had a sister, and his sister married a redheaded guy, so he used to always give this redheaded guy a lot of shit, man. So that's one of the things he used to walk around and say to him all the time. So yeah, he was pretty good. I remember that guy. Good guy. Good peoples, man.
Andy Dick on a Dog Dalton. I like that better than the red rifle, the red rocket, whatever we're calling them. All right, Chop, besides redheads, any final thoughts here in part 1?
Yeah, man, we're just rifling through this, and I can't believe how many huge totals there are. Like Derek mentioned earlier, just 50s everywhere. So it's making for an exciting. I mean, it's going to be exciting. Yeah, it's going to be fun stuff, man.
Yeah, the NFL's becoming college slowly. I don't think we're going to get any 80-point totals soon, but love to see it. It should be a fun week. Again, come back and join us for part 2. For Head Chopper, for Notorious, I am Beer saying salut. Good luck this week, and we'll see you right back here for part 2 of the DFS OGs podcast here on RotoGrinders.com. We'll see you.